I'm extremely lazy. To fix that, I asked ChatGPT to control my life for the next 7 days. And the results were, this challenge might just be a breeze. The challenge was in fact not a breeze. Interesting. So you know those YouTubers that say they are lazy, but then you watch their day in the life videos and they are working for 16 hours non-stop? Yeah, I'm not one of those.
I'm the last born of 4, and growing up, I never really did any chores. My siblings kind of just always did them. And in school, I was also one of the smartest kids in class, and so I never had to work hard to get good grades. I particularly remember waking up the night before my biology WAEC exam, looking at the textbook and just closing it and going back to sleep. And I got a B in the course. Not excellent, but it was good enough for me. And that pretty much sums up how I've lived my life up until this point. I don't really care about being the best in the world at anything. I'm fine with just being very good at it. And so for a long time, I wasn't really bothered about my laziness. It took me far enough without having to stress, and I was okay with that. But being lazy has started to feel much scarier to me than it ever has. And that's for 2 reasons. One, the media makes it sound like no one can ever be successful.
Work like hell.
Rich people don't sleep 8 hours a day.
Just scroll through any social media platform and you think every single successful person doesn't sleep. You go online and all the productivity advice you see is about how to wake up at 6, 5, 4:30, 3:23 a.m. every single day. When I see these things, I kind of start to feel like a fraud, like I've just coasted through life without having to do as much as others. And what's worse is that I'm scared that if I don't become hardworking, it won't just be me who knows I'm a fraud. Everyone else will find out and I'll end up as a failure. But I don't want that. So while most people use ChatGPT to help them become lazier, I'm going to do the opposite and get AI to teach me how to be more hardworking. To do that, I asked ChatGPT to act like my life coach and give me a daily routine that maximizes productivity, giving me time to work on my full-time job, this YouTube channel, and manage my business on the side. After making a few tweaks to the routine that it gave me, I was able to come up with this daily routine, which I'm going to be following for the next 7 days. And hopefully, by the end of it, I would have learned how to stop being a waste man.
Hey guys, it's currently 7 a.m. And yeah, I just woke up, and the first thing ChatGPT asked me to do is to meditate. Which, now that I think about it, might just be a recipe for disaster right after I just woke up. But I give you the AI, so let's go.
Okay, so before I try to fix my laziness, I need to first understand it. And I have so many questions, like what causes laziness? Are some people naturally more hardworking than others? And are we as a society getting lazier? After reading tons of articles, research papers, books, watching videos, here's what I found out. Physical activity is extremely important for our health. There's tons of evidence that shows that just around 30 minutes per day of activity decreases the rates of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, several forms of cancer, stroke, obesity. It basically increases your lifespan. And this is the second, even more terrifying reason why I'm scared of being lazy. I am currently clinically obese, and that means that I have an increased risk of all those health issues and a shorter lifespan. And it genuinely scares me. But even if I know this, I still struggle with being active. And I know I'm not the only one. Researchers used an accelerometer to track the daily activity of over 7,000 people in the US. And the results were shocking. Only 8% of children aged between 12 and 15 have at least 30 minutes of physical activity every day. And that number continues to go down the older the participants got. While people in developing countries like Nigeria are definitely more physically active on average, there is still a decline in physical activity across board. I'm sure you heard how your parents tell you always that they walked 3 kilometers to go to school back in their day. Speaking of parents, your laziness might actually not be your fault. Now, stick with me. At least 12 different studies have shown that genetics play between a 20 to 92% role in the physical activity level of a person. Now, of course, things like technological advancements reduce our physical activity over time, but on an individual level, your genes affect your laziness much more than your environment. Now, the question I'm struggling with is this. If laziness is determined by our genes, does that mean that I can't cure my laziness? Am I just bound to a life of inactivity filled with health crises and professional failures? Okay, so it's currently around 12 to 6 p.m. and I'm on my way to the gym. But just before I leave, I wanted to talk to you guys about something really interesting I found while researching that made me think that maybe laziness isn't something we need to cure. Take a look at this paper. What these researchers found is that people who love to think are generally less physically active than people who do not like to think as much. Take a look at this bar chart. It shows the physical activity level of people who enjoy thinking versus people who don't enjoy thinking. And it's clear to see that those who prefer thinking have lower physical activity levels every day of the week compared to those who do not like thinking as much. The subjects for this study were all college students, and so this difference cannot be attributed to anything else like age or profession because the sample size automatically corrects for that. So it's basically just if you prefer thinking, you're less physically active, and if you're more physically active, then you're not as mentally active, I guess. And I don't know, that's just I'm not even going to lie, this paper was very validating to me. I love to think. I spend my days reading research papers and thinking about philosophy and science and the human condition. But I still felt lazy because I wasn't doing productive work. Forgetting that even though our brains represent only 2% of our body mass, they require around 20% of our entire body's energy supply to function. So the more we demand from our brains, the less energy the rest of our body has to function. And that is the physical sacrifice of thinking. And while this might sound just like a cop-out, the data is clear. I'll leave a link to the study in the description so you can read it for yourself. But that doesn't mean I'm going to stop this project though. But at least now that I know why, I don't feel like such a failure anymore. Okay, I have to go to work now, so I'll talk to you guys in a bit. It's currently 11 p.m. and I feel great. I got so much done today. I literally ticked off every single thing on my to-do list. I'll go to bed by midnight, ready to do this all again in the morning. This challenge might just be a breeze. The challenge was in fact not a breeze. It's currently 8:45 a.m. and I haven't done any work today, and I don't feel bad about it, but let me tell you why. So I woke up by 7 a.m. ready to take on the day when I picked up my phone and I saw that my partner had texted me in the middle of the night because they were feeling pretty sick. I immediately called to try to understand what was going on and to just be there for them in the best way I could. We just ended the call about 15 minutes ago because they're headed to the clinic. Hopefully they'll be fine. But I honestly doubt that I'll be very productive at all today because I will be worried. And this is the part of productivity that our society doesn't really account for or talk about. Tomorrow, I have to take my mom to the hospital to get some routine tests done. And then in the afternoon, my sister is coming from out of state and she's hosting a birthday lunch for her husband. I want to go there and have a great time without worrying about being unproductive. Our culture prides itself on working so hard to get to the top. You hear people talking about how they had to leave their friends and family members who weren't adding to their growth or their success. But those same people, when they eventually become successful, they turn around and they cry that it's lonely at the top. Meanwhile, they were the ones who tossed everyone aside just so they could get there in the first place. And this is why I find it so silly when people call Gen Z lazy. We're lazy because we're not interested in neglecting social time with friends and family just to spend all our waking hours running the rat race. The world is so messed up for my generation that there is no retirement for us. So if we're going to keep working until we die, why not enjoy the ride along the way. It's why 42% of Gen Z say that they would rather work for a company with a sense of purpose rather than one that pays more. We put a greater emphasis on things like a good work-life balance, learning and developing as individuals, than a high salary. Does that sound like people who are lazy? Or people who just have their priorities in order? You tell me. So maybe I will stop the challenge today, or maybe I'll continue tomorrow. But whatever happens, I'm fine knowing that I can work when it's needed and I can relax and focus on other more important things when it's not. Okay, so I finished the challenge, but something pretty interesting happened during the challenge that I wasn't expecting at all. While I was definitely a lot more productive, I discovered that I was a lot less creative. This video was supposed to be done months ago, but I just couldn't find the right words to tell the story I wanted to. It was weird. And then I realized that a lot of my creative process actually involves laziness. Those periods where it seems like I'm not doing anything, my subconscious mind is at work, forming patterns and creating stories so that when I sit down to write, the words just kind of flow. I found this piece of literature that perfectly captures what I was feeling. As an artist, I learned from both the East and the West, but my knowledge of Western art has led me to the conclusion that art cannot exist in the West because artists in the West are not lazy. Laziness is the absence of movement and thought, dumb time, total amnesia. It is indifference, staring at nothing, non-activity, impotence. It is sheer stupidity, a time of pain or futile concentration. These virtues are important factors in art. Knowing about laziness is not enough. It must be practiced and perfected. And it's not just artists. Some of the most influential scientists of the modern day spent most of their time sitting still and just contemplating the universe. Albert Einstein, he slept 10 hours a night and he still took naps in the middle of the day. Isaac Newton, he was bored in isolation, staring out of his window into his backyard when he saw the apple fall from the tree, and he started to think about why it did. Today, we celebrate these men, but we forget the role boredom, or dare I say laziness, played in their genius. The sad truth is that capitalism has designed the myth of laziness just so we can produce more output. At the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, people were made to work from sunrise to sunset. And yeah, definitely, labor laws have certainly helped to make those things better, but the myth of laziness is still one that persists. If you leave work at exactly 5 p.m., you're lazy. If you don't want to spend all your waking hours on the grind, you're lazy. If you use all your paid time off, you're lazy. Back in our hunter-gatherer days, we spent only 15 hours a week working. We produced enough for our small communities, and we spent the rest of our time socializing. Now it's the reverse. We spend all our time creating much more than we can ever consume, turning our planet into a waste bin in the process, and we spend so little time socializing. And yes, we call ourselves social animals. Through this challenge, what I've realized is, 1, physical activity is important for good health. The science is clear on that. But that's the one thing that I would definitely continue even after this. Cooking, going to the gym, these are just things you cannot be lazy about, because being in good health is what allows you to enjoy the other good things in life. But on the other hand, I discovered that laziness, at least the way our society describes it in the context of work, is a myth. Everyone is born with the ability to create something, and in some capacity, all of us do. Whether you're spending 60 hours on a painting, or 40 hours rising through the ranks in a video game, or even 20 hours trying to understand what the heck some of these researchers are writing in their papers, we're all working on something. And in the end, if you want to make the most money, sure, work the most hours you physically can in a job that pays the most. But if you're more interested in enjoying the journey of life, then find work that gives you meaning and fulfillment. Spend the least amount of time on it as possible, and leave the rest for family and friends. Because one of the biggest regrets people have before they die is working too much, not too little. Watch this video next to find out the other regrets.